Welcome everybody to our fourth attempt at this. This is Behind the Graphics, a game industry roundtable. And my name is Alan Turner. I'm a veteran of the Chicago game industry. I've worked for Bungie Software, Microsoft, Disney, White Low Games, worked with a number of titles. Currently I teach at DePaul University, teach game design there, so yay, DePaul! And so this roundtable pretty much is an opportunity for us to have a conversation with you, to have a conversation with us about what it takes to get into the industry, how we got in there, what we're doing, how we move about through it, what it's like to be in it. So it's rather informal. We'll talk a little bit at first about who we are, what we've done, where we are right now, how unstable the industry is, and then we'll field questions from the rest of you. So how's that sound? Awesome. So let me start by introducing our panelists. We've got Nick Schrag from White Disney. Formerly White. Yeah, so that unstable part, we'll talk about that later. Nick Schrag, who's an engineer. Dan Lone, who's a designer. Ryan Wiemeyer, who's a man who wears many hats, does a little bit of everything. Matt Deegan, who's an artist. Animator. And Seth Grima, who is a artist, animator, general awesome artist guy.
Yes, that was me, sorry.
As you mentioned, I was a programmer at White Low Games. I was there for about 7 years and worked on a number of titles, including the Initiative.
How did you get into this?
I went to University of Cincinnati for a bachelor's in computer science, and currently unemployed, looking at the indie scene.
Do you have a focus engineering-wise?
No, I did a lot of different things. I was interested in AI.
Awesome.
My name is Dan Lone. I was a designer at White Low Games. That whole industry instability thing. Let's see, I worked there for just about 6 years, I mean 6 years in August, on Guilty Party, Avengers Initiative, secret project that got pulled at the last second.
It's not coming out.
Nope. Oh. Yeah, Matt worked on it too. I went to DePaul University, studied at the game design program. Alan was my teacher. I got my job. By dressing up like a sloth at a Hail to the Chimp rap party. True story. And
I've got pictures too. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. That's just a little intro about me. And I'm more of a technical designer. My background is in a lot of programming and systems design, but I kind of did a little bit of everything.
I apologize, I'm a little long-winded. I'm Ryan Wiemeyer, and I also worked at White Low for, I think, 3 years, and then I quit because I hated Disney. But also because I was making a game that was doing well on its own called Oregon Trail, which is on Perry Oregon Trail. And, bye right now. And so at that point I formed a studio called Men Wear Many Hats, which is a 2-man independent studio, and I've been that for 2 or 3 years, I can't remember. And we're currently about to put out a new game called Max Gentleman, which is an arcade-style extreme manners simulator about drinking beers and stacking hats, and trust me, it makes sense, kind of whatever. It's going to be free in about a month, so just get it on Steam or whatever. And then I also am on the board of Indie City Games, which is a local game developer group. We meet once every 2 months to kind of share games. You're all welcome to come if you're developers and show off games. We actually have another one coming up on May 10th soon, so if you're really interested in Facebook, Indie City Games. So I'm on the board of that, and I also run a co-working space on the north side for game developers, and I also just started a non-profit called Indie City Collective, which I'm hoping to use to run more public-facing game events, exhibit stuff. And I also teach at DePaul, and I used to go to DePaul, and I guess that's how I got my job. So I impressed one of the professors there who was working at White Low. So he was like, we need X, you can do X, and then I got hired. So I think that's the gist of it. We wear many hats. I mean, I'm technically a designer, but that's like a total BS title because design is not real thing because I know it's not design.
I hear a fight.
I can explain what's up later, but
Okay, Matt, thank you.
My name is Matt Deegan. I've been an animator for 5 years now. I've worked at, well, I'm currently working at High Voltage Software. I got my job started at High Voltage Software for 5 years. Industry instability, and I worked at Phosphor Games for a couple of months, and I worked at Wide Load for a couple of months, and now I'm back at High Voltage Software. I originally got into animation back in 2000, and if you connect the dots, yes, it did take me about 7 years to get a job in the animation industry. Went to the Illinois Institute of Art Chicago. They took my money for 4 years, graduated, did nothing. Went to Animation Mentor, got a job right out of Animation Mentor. Worked on Injustice, Gods Among Us, Disney, Pixar, Toy Story Mania, Man of Steel, iOS game, and yeah.
Awesome, thanks. Seth?
Hi, I'm Seth Grima, artist in the video games industry now for almost 20 years. Most recently, I am in the indie scene, working with 12 Gauge Studios, and we released a title called Pirate Blitz. It's on the iPhone and the Android, and that's currently what I'm working on. In the past, I worked at High Voltage, Wide Load, pretty much almost every Chicago game studio here, except for NetherRealms. So, and I put out titles like Hunter the Reckoning, Hulk, Avengers Initiative Hulk, and like I said, most recently Pirate Blitz. So, yeah, got my first video game gig back in '93, and been doing it ever since. So, that's about it.
Awesome. So we've got a pretty wide range of disciplines represented here at the table. I guess what's cool is that all of us have at one point or another worked with each other.
Question for everyone. Do you think with all the
Speak a
years,
little bit louder.
do you think with all the years and the experience you've, come across, do you think personally that it's getting easier or harder to get into the industry? Personally, do you feel like when you watch other people start out, do you think it's gotten easier or harder to get into it?
Did you guys get that? Has it gotten easier or harder?
If you're talking as someone just like getting out of school, having learned video game development,
Yeah.
I'd have to say it's getting harder, to be honest, because now that the industry's grown and there's so much accessibility online for just everyone to access things, you find a bigger pool of talent, and everyone wants to design games, so they're going online and finding these engines and designing their own games, so there's a lot of competition. I think it's harder nowadays to try and get in the games industry. For all artists out there, the only thing I can say is diversify yourself. Know art, don't know video game art, know how to do art. And you just make yourself a better product that way, or better hire. And have a backup plan. Just like any college athlete, have a backup plan. Because I'm not saying it's the NFL, but it's almost like the NFL, where it's like, okay, so many people are getting in, so many people are going to be successful. Maybe I better prepare for an alternate use of my skills and talents. So that's why anyone who's doing, learning video game art, I encourage you to learn, web design, learn graphic design, learn, and I'm sure that goes for any discipline in video games. Be able to make sure your skills are cross industry. So. Yeah, I'd say it's harder. Not to scare anyone. If you love it and you pursue it, you can succeed. But there's a lot of competition out there. And like we said, the Chicago industry is getting tighter and tighter. You're seeing a lot of indie studios here, and a lot of indie studios are either looking for free work, they're looking for cheap work, or they're not looking for work at all. And all the big studios, they're always teetering on the edge of of disaster. So it's kind of a shaky thing, especially around here.
So we'll start with you, and then we'll come back to you.
This is really you in the middle. You said that after you worked for Disney, they kind of gave you this follow Braves that you used to
Yeah.
do the Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
What exactly about Disney did you not enjoy?
I don't know if we're allowed
We don't have any
to talk
time
about that.
for the.
The long and short of it is I was supposed to be a designer at the time, and they did not let me do my job, and everything was bureaucracy. And so I just got upset.
To be clear, this is under the Disney Interactive division, so if any of
Yes.
you are thinking about working in, for Disney in other capacities, I mean, that.
Yeah, they're all different. They're all different.
It's, working for big corporations is almost like politics. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of pipelines, and there's a lot of things that interfere with just people who want to create. You know, it's hard, that's all. But, you know what, the benefits are good, and you kept food on the table. And
Yeah.
but I can understand, let's put it this way, I always wanted to work, when you do games, you have these ideas in your mind. You're like, oh, I want to do a Marvel title, I want to do a Star Wars title, Harry Potter, Star Trek, whatever. And I got to do a Marvel title, and by the time like Avengers came out, I was so sick of Marvel. I was really sad about it. Like, and then my love has grown again, but it was really rough working on a Marvel title and dealing with the stuff you have to deal with to get to, like he said, for the games division. It kind of breaks you in a way. But once you stop doing it, you get over it and you get back to it. But it's. So now I don't ever want to work on a Star Wars title for the same fear. So.
I would like to say that I met my wife from Disney Interactive. She was my localization producer. So despite the fact that they closed the studio and I was a little upset, I do owe them a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed working.
I would have been worthless if I hadn't worked with Milo for those first 3 years. I just want to make that very clear. Like, they trained me to not suck.
And so I think the other thing to point out is that part of the issue going from White Oak to Disney was a culture change. And anytime you're a small studio, a small independent, and somebody in the studio sells you to like a bigger organization, the organization says, don't worry about it, things are going to stay the same, it's a lie. Because they have their own culture, and you have very little ability to affect their culture.
It might actually be the truth, but they're so big that they don't know who's talking to who, so.
They believe it. It's just, the reality of it is that you just got to swallow a bigger fish. And there's going to be a culture change. And if everything that works about your group is a function of that culture, that change can cause the group to disassemble.